Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So today I want to talk about grouping in Path of Exile and essentially how the party system works and what the incentives are, because that's really what the most important thing is. As we've seen in games like Diablo 3, partying can be fun, but when the game came out, it was so, impeding, it was so bad for efficiency that practically everyone who, went into the game with the idea of doing a party essentially couldn't, because the game was too hard if you partied, and all the efficiencies encourages solo play, and that was a really bad system, which they have since fixed, which is very good. But in Path of Exile, the game works very differently. At high level, the most important thing to note is that you're probably going to level through maps, and if you level through maps, you really need a very good system of getting the really high level maps, because without the really high level maps, your leveling rate is going to be very slow. To get these maps, you have to do lower level maps. The way it works is the map system starts into play right now at level 60. When you kill a mob, it can drop that level map. So if you're in a level 60 map, you can get a level 60 map. If you kill a champion, it can drop level 61 items. If you kill like a rare mob or the boss, it can drop 2 levels higher, so level 62 items. Finding maps is really rare, and it's additionally rare because if you have gear with the magic find stat, which is one of them is called quantity, which increases the number of items that drop, it doesn't actually increase the number of map drops that you get. And there's a quantity bonus of plus 50% if you're with a party, but if you're with a party, you also don't get that effect. You do for every item in the game except for maps. So when it comes to maps, if you're solo or if you play in a group, you're always going to get the same number, and that's always going to be based on the difficulty of the map. Now, most maps are very selective. Certain maps are good for some classes, others better for other classes. But the way it works is if you're a solo player, you can kind of choose what you want. If you play in a group, chances are there's going to be some very big weaknesses on some of the players. So the maps are a little bit more restrictive if you're doing them as a party. But as a benefit, if you play as a party, if you know what you're doing, you have the added benefit of some sort of synergy. There are a lot of abilities in this game that synergize. A lot of people don't really know what they are, because most people who just tried Path of Exile, they're probably, like, when people pick up a game, they're going to play solo, so they haven't really delved into this stuff, but there is a lot of stuff out there that can be used for efficiency in parties. But the main thing is that the number of maps that you get is still going to be approximately the same, but there is a way to combat this. The thing is, lower level maps are actually a lot easier than higher level maps, and pretty much any player should be able to solo them with a reasonable amount of gear. Maybe they acquire after a day or two or something like that. And with this gear, once they start doing the map, they're going to get some more maps eventually. But to get the really high level maps, because of the system of you have to get a little lucky to get the map off the right mob, and then you have to go up a ladder, because you start the maps at 60, and you have to get lucky enough to do like a 61 map, 62, maybe you jump to 64. In the 64 map, you find the 66. It goes all the way up to 69. And that's where the real experience is. But getting those maps is extremely difficult. And the best way to do it right now is to have all the players who are part of your group solo their 60 maps, solo their 61 maps, to a reasonable level, maybe 63, maybe 64. And any maps they get higher level than that, you would then do them as a party, because they're getting all the same amount of drops. Like if you do it as a group, you'd get a certain amount of 64 maps when you're cruising through the 61, 62, 63. But if you're doing them separately, even if you're doing it a little bit slower, because the number of maps that you get is not affected by the party size, you're actually going to get more overall 64 maps. But if you just do that 64 map, you might get lucky, you might get a little bit higher, but you're going to start to get some experience in the mid 60 map. So that's when you want to party up, and then you hit up that experience. You make sure that map is a really good map, get some really good mods on there, and that's really the main incentive in group play. It's the fact that if you work together in a kind of system where you have a certain understanding, you can really take advantage of the valuable experience that is out there. Now, the other thing is with drops. In this game, a lot of the things is time-based. So the amount of time you put into a game, you're not really going to get all you want out of it. This is especially true for trading in this game. Because this game doesn't have an auction house, thankfully for, some of you guys, I'm sure you guys are pleased, and it doesn't have a very direct trading system. While trading is fun, if you get a good item, you're like, oh wow, this is a good item, I can probably get this for it, and this is what I want. Awesome, But all that takes time. Because there isn't a set understanding for value of items, because there isn't a very good medium to trade the items, trading takes more time than it would normally do. If you play in a party, trading is much quicker. Even though, if two players play separately, each one is getting an X amount of loot. If you play together, you get X with a 50% bonus. So you get 1.5 instead of 2 if you play as 2. If you play with more, obviously it's less. You get less and less loot, but you spend less and less time trading the items because there's more variety of loot that drops. There's less loot overall compared to if all the players are playing by themselves, but as a combination, you're going to get more variety of items and they're going to be right there. It's like, hey, I don't need this. Do one of you guys need this? Probably will. And that's really what it comes down to. In this game, there's a lot of time-sensitive events, like I said. A lot of it is like race-wise, like week-long races, month-long races, and even like getting to 100. I'm sure people are going to want to make that as efficient as possible. And the way to do that is to cut off, things that aren't really necessary. Trading is good. It's good to trade, but if you can minimize the time trading and maximize the time grinding mobs and XPing up, I feel that's a very strong advantage. In Path of Exile, overall, I feel the group incentives are very strong, and the transition to solo play is very good as well. Pretty much any spec that's made for a group, you're still going to have very strong solo capability. You may not clear the mobs as fast if you're more of a support role, but you will be able to. Because in this game, just like Diablo 3 once was, it is a game of having enough, of a certain kind of stat to stay alive. When it comes to dealing damage, you're pretty much going to do enough damage regardless. If you're high level, as I've explained in other videos, if you're high level, if you got the higher level skills, and you have a few pretty decent items, you're not really going to need to invest in really that many damage passive nodes. You just invest in the survivability and a few support, and it's not really going to take away that much from your survivability, so you'll be just fine. I hope you guys, take this opportunity while Path of Exile is still in closed beta to try to group with other players. They do have a party system, and pretty much the only negative side that you may encounter grouping with random people is the loot. While the loot, you get 50% more, as you've seen in the video in the background here. The loot is kind of tailored towards a certain player. So what happens is the loot is not individualized like it is in Diablo 3. It is closer to Diablo 2, where all the shit just drops all at once on the ground. But there's a certain timer that is based off of where the item dropped compared to the distance of the player that it dropped for, so you can run there and pick it up. And this item can only be picked up by this player during this amount of time. And if that time expires, it is open to the other players in the party. So what some players do, some little scumbags, they just like sit on your loot and try to nab it up before you can. So there is some issues with that, but might as well get those issues out of the way now and try to find some people that you can really have a good understanding with loot, so you can not have to waste time doing this kind of method and not having to waste time afterwards arguing about it. But all in all, I'm pretty happy with the incentives behind the group system, because that's really what's important, and I feel partying in this game will be very strong, and I wish you guys would give it a try. See you guys tomorrow.